Mm.
Buffalo After Dark is proud to recommend I Barbecue for You. Pre-orders are suggested by calling 716-880-7667. I Barbecue for You, Buffalo's new barbecue destination.
Just move the coyotes. Don't do another expansion.
Right? It would never crossed my mind. So somebody called the house when I was out mowing the grass.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Holy shit, your face is like purple.
Are you still up? Now in their fifth season, it's Buffalo After Dark.
Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It is Wednesday night, October 16th. And of course, we're going to start off the show with some breaking news on some wide receiver trades today. Of course, our friend Brad from Louisville's in the chat already. And he's like, all right, to open up, can we talk about spanking the Lions with the Cowgirls and the Jones comments after the game? Absolutely, we can cover that a little bit later on. But first, of course, Hanson's here. How's it going?
I'm doing good. It's tonight's game three of the NLCS between the Mets and the Dodgers. As of now, the series is tied at one, and the next three games are at Citi Field. And if the Mets win all three of them, then they're going to the World Series, and that's the only thing I'm praying for at this point. But outside of that, though, we're also going to Seattle next week for Road to 32, so we'll get to talking about that towards the end of the show.
Yep. Yeah, which will be interesting because there's really no show next week because we're flying out early that morning. So,
Yeah,
um, and then we'll have
so
Road
the
to
next two
32 the
weeks are going to be
following week.
these next 2 weeks are going to be tough. We both wanted to record next week, so this is really our last show before the trip. So,
Yeah.
because if what time's your flight next week? I meant to ask you
It's
that.
at 6 a.m., so I'm going to be at the airport probably by 4 a.m. or something like that.
Oh, geez, mine's at like 7 o'clock in the morning as well.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so I got to go to JFK like mad early.
Oof. Well, I mean, I know for me, flying out of Buffalo, I have to go through Detroit, and then it's just straight from Detroit to Seattle. So, I mean, it'll be about a 5 hour flight from Detroit, but it's only about an
Yeah.
maybe hour, 10 minutes from here to Detroit, so it's not too bad. I've done that flight before,
Well, yeah, I'm sure of it, but it's a bit of
quite
a
a few
tall
times
task.
actually.
Well, yeah, I remember when we did Kansas City 2 years ago, the one that started it all, really.
Mm.
Uh, that was like the
Yeah,
sneak preview of what was to come in the future at that point. And then
right.
Kansas City came in, and that was the start of Road to 32. And we've
Hmm.
been kind of been doing it since then. But it's funny.
Yeah.
Um, what was I going to say? So we've been kind of keeping it as a tradition and alive, really, for the last couple of years.
Yeah, seriously, and it's not just been on the football side either. We've done baseball now, so we've done some different things, which is always good. And plus, now we can throw
Yeah.
hockey in the mix a week from now. So
Well, we've also done hockey games. You've done the Leafs.
true.
Well, yeah, I did the Leafs 10 years ago, but Road to
Yeah,
32 didn't exist yet. But
right.
I've done
And I've
the
seen the Islanders down
Panthers.
by you in the old barn.
Yeah, the Islanders. I've done the Devils. The Panthers. I saw
Yeah,
who
I've
else did
seen
I
the
see?
Penguins.
Yeah, and I've seen the Bruins. We're both seeing the Kraken and the Canucks next weekend,
Yep.
and of course we've seen the Islanders, the Sabres, and a handful of teams. I have seen the Rangers, but I have to do it again just so that I can get the pin and of course make a
Mhm.
video about it. So,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna work on something with Rob Hazu. Hopefully, I'm gonna talk to him soon. about potentially doing a Road to 32 episode in late February to see the Flyers. I mean, we really don't know yet.
Interesting. Well, good to see, man. But and really from here, it's gonna be a fun time. So of course we've got that long ass flight, and then of course on top of it, then we have the hockey game the same night. So it's gonna be a fun night, and we're gonna probably be sleeping good after that. But in the meantime, before we get started and open it up for where people can call in, Sabres are leading Pittsburgh 3-1, and Tristan Jarry got chased from the pipes after 3 goals on 5 shots.
It's funny because I was watching bits of that in the first period. So I'm actually flicking back and forth between that game and the NLCS with the
Mm,
Mets and Dodgers. And before the Mets game came on, I was watching the first period and I said, wow, the Sabres came out flying in that first period because apparently the narrative was Sidney Crosby needed 1 point to get up to, I think it was 1,600
yeah, he
career
got it.
points. He did, yeah. And and Evgeny Malkin, I think it was, he needed
Nice glove
two goals to
save.
reach 500.
Mm. Yeah, and Luukkonen just got a nice glove save. so so at least he's playing pretty well. So that's a big plus to see. Shots on goal 14-13 in favor of Pittsburgh right now, but I mean 14:51 left in the second. So at least it seems like when they ended up beating Florida, and then now with how they're playing tonight, things are finally starting to click. And we'll talk more about the hockey game as we go on. But of course, if you guys want to give us a call, 929-205-6099, we'll get you on the air. And feel free if you want, you can conference in by going on Zoom. Of course, we are live on YouTube and on Facebook. And if you want to check out any of our older episodes, including last week's, if you missed it, you can go to Spotify and it's all right there for you. So, big news over the last day. And first, Devontae Adams got what he wanted. He got out of Las Vegas and he got traded to the Jets. But literally 2 hours later, Brandon Beane's like, "Hey Woody, hold my beer," and he ends up signing Amari Cooper literally for nothing. And he may be playing this Sunday. And here's the funny part about it, because Cleveland front loaded that contract and paid him basically everything up front in terms of bonuses. They converted like half his deal to bonuses. The Bills are only going to have to pay Amari Cooper 806,000 something for the year. So you're getting
Some
a wide
crazy
receiver
ass number.
one for cheap. And he's a
Yeah,
free agent next
seriously.
year.
Yeah, which is insane. So let's start at the top. So the Jets got Devontae Adams, which was, let's be honest here, that was like the worst kept secret in the National
Yeah,
Football League.
everybody knew that was going to happen because he wanted out so bad. And the contract is absolutely insane with what the Jets are going to be paying him.
Yeah, and didn't you say the Jets had to pay what? How much did the Jets have to pay?
The action. So let's take a look.
You sent it to me earlier, but I didn't fully read it. It was something like 1.17 million or something like that. Some crazy
Well,
ass number.
they just restructured his deal, but here was the thing. So the deal was he was supposed to be paying like something like 16.89 million is what his deal
Jesus.
was, and it got restructured to be just below 11 million. But basically, the cap number was 3.21 million. So here you have a wide receiver that ended up coming in, and basically you're having to pay over $3 million on the cap, and of course having that original contract being over $35.5 million for Devonte Adams, and here Amari Cooper, because Cleveland. Thank you for doing what you did, because he paid 99% of his contract up front as a bonus. Basically, the Bills only have an $806,000 cap hit.
Well, okay, so with Devonte Adams, apparently there were two voidable years that were added to the deal, and both Devonte Adams and the Jets discussed a future contract with the Jets after the season. So really, this whole Devonte Adams thing makes no sense, especially what happened on Monday night. Which, oh dear God, we got to talk about that.
Oh yeah,
But for the Jets' perspective, getting Adams, it was the worst kept secret in the league. Everybody knew the moment Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets, everybody said that Devontae Adams was going to inevitably go to the Jets. It was not about if, it was about when.
right,
And they get him, and the Jets now have to eat a good portion of their cap for both Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams.
right, and don't
And,
forget,
and
and
think of
don't forget Alan Lazard.
Yeah, so I think right now the Jets, at least from what I'm thinking about it, and I may just be wrong about this, but correct me if I am. I'm pretty positive that the Jets right now are in the top three for one of the worst salary cap situational teams in the league. Because I
Hmm.
know the Bills were in there for a few years, then the Saints were trying to get themselves out for a few years. The Jets now put themselves in that situation,
Hmm.
and that's tends what happens to happen with teams that are so overconfident with their ability to make the team good you go over the cap. But I think the only reason why the Jets made this trade, it wasn't because of scheme. It wasn't because they needed a receiver. It was because they were trying to get Aaron Rodgers to stay with the Jets because obviously Tay is very, very good friends with A-Rod.
Hmm.
So they were doing it to shower him,
Yeah.
shower him with some love. That's really what happened.
Yeah. And what ends up happening, basically, it just puts themselves more in cap hell. They've got washed up receivers at this point. I mean, yes, Devontae Adams will be helpful, but then Aaron Rodgers has virtually nobody around him still.
I don't think that's entirely fair to say about the Jets because
Their
when you look at the
defense is
Jets on
good.
paper, it's okay. I mean, it's stellar. I'm not going to take that away from them, but their offense is very suspect because if you look at their team on paper, this is their entire offense. You have Aaron Rodgers, you have Garrett Wilson, you have Mike Williams, who's inevitably going to get traded, you have Devontae Adams, and then you had someone else. I think his name is Malachi something. I forget
Malachi
his name.
Becton.
No, not Mekhi Becton. Mekhi Becton was the lineman for the Jets, but he's on the Eagles. But they have Brees Hall, they have Braylon Allen. They got some good ass players. And I believe the Sabres just scored, but I'm going to double check on that. Yes, they did. JJ Peterka just scored.
Ooh, second of the night.
Yeah. So it's 4-1 Buffalo. Nice.
And
But
he threw on the afterburners on that one.
yes, he did. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So the Jets, if you look at their offense, they deliberately have good weapons. Garrett Wilson's there, Devontae Adams is there, Mike Williams is bound to be traded, Brees Hall, Braylon Allen, Jeremy Rucker, who by the way is from Lindenhurst. That's about
Hmm.
maybe a half an hour from where I live.
Yeah, not far.
Um, no, that's not far at all. He's a local kid. But aside the point, the Jets' biggest issue right now is offensive line because
Hmm.
there's no side blocker for Rodgers. He's getting completely exposed, and you saw that on Monday night.
Yeah,
And they also are really desperate of a pass rusher, and Hassan Reddick is going to be the one being traded because he wants money and the Jets are not willing to give it to him. So my question then becomes, why the hell did you trade for a pass rusher knowing full well that he was going to play hardball with you on a new contract?
hmm, right. Oh, I'm just watching the replay, and looks like there's gonna be a penalty on that goal. Also, yeah, Buffalo went on the power play. Looks like a slash.
That's unfortunate. So they didn't even count the goal then. So never mind that part. So I
Right,
apologize, guys.
right.
But
But
if
it
you
was a nice breakaway though.
But if you look at like the Jets, though, on paper, they have a good team on paper, but every move they've been making, especially within the last couple of weeks, if you go back to last week when we talked about it with Robert Sala, he got fired because Aaron Rodgers said, "No, I'm not allowing you to fire my boy Nate Hackett, even though he does absolutely nothing." So what the
Yeah,
Jets did instead was they kept Hackett as offensive coordinator, but Todd Downing, the QB coach, is take over the play calling, which pretty much means Hackett is just there to please Rodgers, which does nothing for the Jets. And
exactly.
then, yeah, so Salah gets fired last week. This week they make a desperational move by getting Devontae Adams. And yet these fucking idiots think that getting Adams is going to immediately make you a Super Bowl contender, and that's in spite of the fact that you're 2-4.
Yeah, let's talk about that game. So, yes, the Bills survived against the Jets. They survived. And it wasn't the best game for Allen, but it was a little bit better than what we saw with Houston. 19 and 25 for 215 yards, two touchdowns, and he also rushed nine times for 18 yards and a third touchdown. So 23-20. And can we talk about, first and foremost, I mean, Frank Gore Jr. got to play some time, but how about one of our other backup running backs?
Well, I mean, you have Ray Davis, you had
Yes, Davis had a
Ty
coming out.
Johnson.
Yeah, Davis had the coming out party during that game. He played well.
hmm And with him being the RB1 of that game, because James Cook was out with a toe injury,
Yep.
um, that kind of put the light on him. So nobody really knew how good Ray Davis really was going to be. And then all of a sudden, he's gone. He just goes
Yeah,
bonkers, and he's just
he
doing what he
showed
does
up.
best.
He showed
Yeah,
up.
he did. He outright showed up. And as far as the Jets go, they were having a really hard time stopping the run.
Hmm.
It was very clear. Like they were having a load of trouble. But at the same time, I need to address this real quick. The fucking refs and the officiating in this
Oh
game
my
on
God.
both sides was horrendous.
Yeah, something like 204 yards and penalties, like all together. It's like 23
Yeah,
times that the flags were thrown.
I think that's an NFL record.
Yeah, it's a single season record for the number of penalties. I'm like, holy crap! And then there was multiple 15 yarders.
Again, I don't know if it was just flag football they were trying to play or what's it called? I don't even know what to say because
Yeah.
the fact that I was talking to all my buddies who are Jets fans, and you know me, obviously I live in Jet Country. A lot of them said, I didn't even want to talk about it because of how bad that game was. But you can't always just blame the refs. Like, yeah, I agree with them. The refs were horrible.
Hmm.
I had no say. I mean, I was a little embarrassed about how the game played out, but at the same time, the Bills did what they had to do. And Jets fans had the audacity to say that the refs were siding with the Bills for the majority of the game. I'm like, bitch, are you watching the same game? If anything, the Bills were getting penalized from left and right. Same with the
Yeah.
Jets. I don't know if, like, and I have a conspiracy behind this is that I firmly believe the reason why there were so many penalties is because I feel like that ref, I think his name is Adrian Hall or something like that. I don't know his name, but apparently I think just an opinion is I think the reason why there were so many calls in that game was because he actually has money on that game, which you're not supposed to do if you're an NFL
Hmm.
official. That's considered rigging an
Oh,
NFL
Pittsburgh
game.
just scored.
Ah, damn.
Yeah, so three
But
two. I think O'Connor got the goal on that one.
damn, that sucks.
Yep.
Um, what was I gonna say? Referees in any sport, whether it's football, whether it's baseball, whether it's hockey, it doesn't matter what sport it is. Referees are meant to be neutral. You have to be neutral.
Hmm.
But the refs in this game were so horrible that people were calling out, Roger Goodell is saying, hey, control your refs. Let the boys play football here. And Aaron Rodgers even had the audacity to go up to the podium and criticize the officiating. That's how
Yeah,
bad it
he even
was.
said that one pass interference was not pass interference.
Yeah. And I actually have a bone to pick with the NFL. How is it roughing the passer with AJ Epinesa on Aaron Rodgers? Oh, because of his body weight. Seriously? You're gonna
I
argue
was,
because of his
yeah, I was wondering about that call. Also, I'm like, are you serious? When
Yeah,
I heard that,
legit.
yeah, what are you supposed to do? Oh, you got to fall on the turf and like hope that you don't land on the QB. Oh, and the goal is being reviewed right now. So
What are you gonna do? Just like it really, in all seriousness, what the fuck do you think is gonna
yeah,
happen?
if you're on
Oh, let's
defense,
just
yeah, if you're a pass rusher, you're crushing the quarterback. It's that simple.
that's that's the whole purpose of a pass
You're
rusher.
supposed to
You
crush the QB.
mm-hmm. And the thing that really bugged me about that is yeah, and people really think that the NFL is gonna turn to flag football in less than 5.5 years from now, which I really hope that's not the case.
Same
But
here.
the way that Roger Goodell sets up the rules in the league and the board of governors, of course, um, it's pretty much like you can't even tackle quarterbacks anymore. Instead of putting all your body weight down and get the sack, that could have been, 10, 15 yards right there. Instead, you have defensive ends like AJ Epinesa, for example, going up to Aaron Rodgers saying, poking him in the side of his arm and saying, excuse me, Mr. Rodgers, I'm gonna take you down now. Do you care if I take you down? Okay, let me grab you by the head. We're gonna go
Yeah,
all the way down. I'm
yeah.
gonna pat
It's
your
like,
head.
what do you
Okay.
need to do? Throw that like new cap on top of the helmet or something. Also, it's like, oh, let's soften the blow.
Yeah, it's like, oh, do you need help? Let me put you to bed. Mwah. All right, I'll see you later. Good night, Mr.
Right,
Rogers. Like, no,
right,
no, no. You take him and you bring him to the ground. I don't understand how that's roughing the
right.
passer.
Yeah, I totally don't think that's roughing the passer at all. I mean, that to me was a clean hit. So,
It
and
was.
actually that goal might be coming back because it looks like it was offsides. So, but they're still reviewing it. So who knows? They're probably trying to say, "Oh, let's let Pittsburgh keep this one just because we want to keep it a close matchup." Yeah, well, NHL fucking rigs everything too. But anyways, but then here's another interesting thing. How about Tyler Bass continuing to suck as of late? And
Oh
word is
God.
today, former University of Missouri kicker Harrison Melvis is being brought in for a workout today.
Well, that doesn't surprise me because they need a new kicker, and I think if anything, the Bills needed a new kicker because Tyler Bass has been god awful since the playoffs, and it's not really doing anybody any favors. And by the way, they just counted that goal in the Penguins game for to Drew O'Connor. That's the second goal of the
Ah,
season.
okay. It looks like it was on the line. So it wasn't
Yeah,
behind the line, so it looks like it just barely was not offsides, but in either case,
yeah.
yeah, but no, seriously, I mean Baz, I mean the one extra, I'm like, how do you miss an extra point? I mean, obviously it was, I mean the one was tipped, but if you're routinely missing like easy chip shots from the hash marks, I mean, come on. And I think ever since he had that wide right, that was the end of his confidence. He was just shot.
Yeah, ever since that playoff game against Kansas City back in January, I said that's probably all of his confidence. He's all lost. I don't feel like that Tyler Bass is as good as he was. Like before that playoff game in the last couple of years, Tyler Bass was one of the most clutch kickers in football.
Yeah,
Now he's just a shell of his former self, and that's
right.
really tragic.
Yeah, like remember like when he was a rookie and then season 2, season 3, I mean, he was nailing everything. And
He
now
was.
it's like it reminds me like remember when the New England Patriots got rid of Adam Vinatieri because he was having issues and they shipped him over to the Indianapolis Colts and then it was kind of like a rebirth of his career until he retired. It
Yes.
almost makes me wonder if that's going to be ultimately a similar scenario of what happens here because right now Bass can't be trusted as a clutch field goal kicker. I mean, he's
Well,
all over the place.
well, if you're asking me who I think the Bills should bring in, how about Riley Patterson? He's available.
I'd be fine with that.
That's if he's good at his job. That's the problem. Because
Right.
Jacksonville cut him for a reason.
Yeah, true. I mean, and then there are some others. I mean, certainly we could maybe look at during the off season, or possibly if they look at bringing someone from the XFL or something. But I
No,
mean,
no, no,
but
no.
right now it's just not a good situation for Bass.
No, you need a kicker now because you don't wait till the off season to get a kicker. You get a kicker now because you're in week 7. You have the Titans coming up in Orchard Park on Sunday. You need a kicker. Special teams right now is not good enough. And Bass to me lost his confidence in that playoff game, like you were saying against KC. You cannot be doing that moving forward. If you're a Super Bowl contender and you are having issues with a kicker, this is a serious problem, and the Bills have to address it either through trade or get one in free agency.
Should have,
Kickers,
yeah, should have
like
never
kickers,
let
are
Ariza go.
yeah. Well, Ariza was a punter. That was a
Well,
big
right,
difference.
but then again, I mean, we have had kickers and punters doing double duty, so I mean, it's not unheard of.
No, I'm not saying it isn't, but so oftentimes
But
punters
most of
just
the time,
know
you're
how to
not going to
punt.
see it.
Sam Martin's never going to kick a field goal. He's a
Right?
good placeholder and he's a good
Yeah,
punter. I'm not going to take that away
yeah.
from him,
He had a
but
pretty good game.
yeah, I'm not. Listen, I have no issue with Sam Martin. I think he does fine as a punter. It's more of the fact that what's it called? It's more of the fact that Tyler Bass is an Achilles heel on this team, and this should not be an issue for any team in the league. But unfortunately, Buffalo right now has a big flaw in
Hmm.
special teams. And getting rid of Bass right now, I think through a trade would probably be the best thing to do.
Yeah,
But the question is, who needs a kicker?
right. And even more interesting, I was watching the Brandon Bean press conference earlier today, and he even told Bass straight up, "This is a production business," and he knows they're bringing in kickers to try out.
As they should, because
Exactly.
bringing in more kickers is not going to boost his confidence. All that's going to do is that's a huge red flag for
Hmm.
Tyler Bass. You cannot be in a situation where you're missing field goals from left and right. And this is now like the 4th game this year in a row where he's missed at least one or two
Yeah.
more kicks in a field or in a game. You cannot be doing that.
Right. I mean, look at Houston. Cost us. Look at Baltimore. Well, we were kind of out of it in Baltimore, but it didn't help us any. And look at everything that's gone on for the first. Now we're going into week 7. look at all of the points that we could have had he actually not sucked.
I mean, at this point, I really don't know what to say about him anymore. I'm better off cutting him or trading him because I know he got that contract extension a couple years ago,
Oh
but it
yeah.
doesn't mean shit. The Bills can easily cut him, and
Hmm.
yeah, they might have to eat some contracts. They might have to eat like $3 or $4 million in the cap, but it doesn't change the fact that they still need help in that position.
Right. And even if we do get someone now, I mean, I'm thinking come this draft, watch him draft a kicker.
I'd rather have someone with NFL experience. That's just me.
Right,
Like
right.
I would,
Like have someone for now and then have a kicker that they can develop. I mean, I could see that happening. But definitely getting a
right.
proven NFL kicker now that we can actually use.
Absolutely, without a doubt. But I just think that things just have to change drastically. But
Yeah.
speaking of changes, because we didn't really go into it yet, Amari Cooper, let's talk about the trade.
Hmm. I love it. We finally have a wide receiver one again.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, because I have friends who work with me, had no idea the Bills even traded for Amari Cooper. I'm like, really? You didn't know that? So the deal was the Bills were getting Amari Cooper and a 2025 sixth-round pick from the Cleveland Browns in exchange for a 2025 third-round pick and a 2026 seventh-round pick. And you were mentioning that Cooper was only what, $870,000?
Like only 806,000, like six something and change. I mean, it was super cheap, and that's a great thing because Cleveland front loaded everything, and they basically converted it to a bonus. So he already got paid, and we're just responsible for only 806,000 and change. So we're getting a legit wide receiver number one for next to nothing. We give up next to nothing. Cleveland actually makes out better than they did with the trade from Dallas to get Amari Cooper originally because now they have a third round pick that went back their way when basically Dallas only got a fifth. So actually, Cleveland gets to rebuild a little bit. But at the same time, now Amari Cooper and Josh Allen together, that's going to create some interesting matchups, especially against opposing defenses. Because now, when you're looking at who's coming up, I mean, Miami's going to be coming up now. Seattle, of course, when we're out there's going to be some very interesting dynamics that are going to be changing here. And what it also does, and I look at it in this way, it gives Khalil Shakir someone that he can actually learn from who's been in the league for 10 years and has played on some really good teams. I mean, look at how he did with Dallas, look how he did with the 49ers, and so forth. Those are going to be good experiences that's going to help him, and it's going to take the pressure off of him so he doesn't have to worry about being a wide receiver number one at this point. It's not going to be that number one by committee. I mean, right now, Cooper is your number one guy. Shakir is basically your number two guy. And then, of course, it's also going to probably allow things to free up a little bit for Kincaid. And also, when you're looking at our tight ends, Dawson Knox, because they're not having to rely on wide receiver by committee. So they're, and plus with the matchups that Cooper will draw in, he's probably going to draw a double team similar to what Stephon Diggs did. So it's going to open up some passing lanes for other players, which is certainly going to be good. We can use more of a slot option now. We can use more of that tight end option or a tight end set. There's different things we can do. So I think it opens up the offense a little bit more than what we've been able to do so far to get to 4-2. So especially as the schedule gets a little bit tougher and we see some tougher opponents still through the rest of the season, it's a nice thing to have right now.
Absolutely. And you know what? He's also one of the best route running wide receivers in the
Hmm.
NFL, bar none. And think of all the quarterbacks that he's played with. And the thing I learned about Amari Cooper, he's been in the NFL since 2014 and he's only 30 years old. So that means when he got drafted by the Raiders all those years ago, he was only 20 years old when he got
Yeah,
drafted.
yeah. And think of who he's played with: Derek Carr, Dak. I mean, now he's going to play with Josh Allen.
Yeah. I mean, you go from Derek Carr to Dak Prescott to Deshaun Watson and now Josh Allen.
Yeah,
And that's a big jump for Amari
yeah.
Cooper. And and usually the production of those players skyrocket once they play with a new quarterback. And I'm fully
Hmm.
expecting that to happen with
Yeah,
Amari Cooper.
yeah.
So I'm very, very excited of what he's going to bring to the table. But Justine Anderson from ESPN actually wrote something very interesting about Amari Cooper. You want to hear it?
Sure.
So Amari Cooper, according to Justine Anderson, Amari Cooper with an instant reaction to her on the phone regarding his trade to the Buffalo Bills yesterday. He said, quote, General Manager Andrew Berry called me and told me what was going on as far as playing with Josh Allen. I've always been a fan of his game, and I'm sure to see it up close and personal and play alongside him, and I'm sure it's going to be great. And I've been in this situation before, so that helps me, and I'm just excited to turn it to a new chapter and be able to contribute.
Nice. Yeah, and here's what happens. Look what happened to Stephon Diggs when he ended up playing with Josh Allen. He had four of the best years in his career. Look what
He
happens
did,
with other
and
wide receivers when they play with Josh Allen. He builds them up. So all these people that are so butthurt about Josh Allen, they say, "Oh, well, he sucks. He's a turnover machine. He's all this stuff." He's actually made wide receivers better. And then on top of it, he hasn't even turned the ball over yet this season. So there goes that argument right out the window.
don't look now. The Sabres just blew it.
Fuck.
Yep, it's 3-3 in Pittsburgh. And who scored the goal for the Penguins? Oh my God. It was too fast. So Eller coming in, and it's a little saucer pass.
18.
Backhand.
Number
Yeah.
18.
I'm trying to figure. Oh, that's Jesse Puljujarvi. Fuck.
Ooh. And a backhand.
God damn. God damn it.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say?
Yeah, I just
No,
saw the replay of the goal too, and I'm like, man, just went to that backhand and just totally tapped it. I'm like, holy Jesus.
that's Jesse Puljujarvi.
Yeah,
Jeez.
good hands.
Oh, and it gets worse. The Dodgers are up 1-0 over the Mets in the top of the second. 2-0 Dodgers.
Oh boy.
Fuck. Well, it's early, so there's still time. But aside the point, there was a little collision between Starling Marte and Tyrone Taylor. They both tried to catch the ball and they collided with each other.
Gotcha. Yeah.
God damn, dude.
Yeah, and then one other comment I'll just throw in here real quick also, and then we'll get back to Cooper, and then we'll touch base on some of the other football and in hockey news, obviously. Brad ends up mentioning when both sides are critical of the officiating, the NFL needs to address the issue. Yeah, you're 100% right about that. So there's no question about that. But yeah,
Yeah.
going back to your point about Cooper, though, I mean, here he is. He's played with those QBs. He's gonna likely go balls to the wall with everything that he can give this season because he'll probably want a contract to stay here. And here we go. Get a cheaper wide receiver option that's actually going to be able to potentially develop. But I like what it does offensively for us because it opens up some more options in the playbook.
It does, and I think it also creates, more opportunities for Allen to throw to because you're not just relying on a rookie wide receiver anymore. You're not just relying on a second-year tight end, and you're not relying on a 5'8" wide receiver anymore.
Hmm.
You now have variety of weapons. So, like 2 weeks ago, the Bills had little to no weapons. Now they add one of the best route running wide receivers in football on the team for dirt cheap, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But the other thing too that really struck out about this deal is I only found out today is Brandon Bean went on the Pat McAfee show and he said that there's a possibility that the Bills have at least one more trick up their sleeve
Hmm.
before the deadline. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so are you going to double dip in wide receiver or are you going to go get a defensive back? Like, what are you going to do here? And I'm very curious
Yeah.
what your response
Or
to that is.
or do you get a kicker?
It's possible, but I think, again, if Riley Patterson is a free agent, you don't have to give up shit.
Right, exactly. Just go ahead and get him. I mean, that
Yeah.
part's easy. But I would say if we can get another defensive back, especially Von Miller being out because of the suspension, do it. If you can get a
Well,
second wide receiver one, do it.
I was actually thinking of a different opposition. I was thinking of safety. Think about that. Because you have DeMar Hamlin
Right.
and you have Cole Bishop and you have Taylor Rapp.
Yeah.
One is good, and the two
Yeah.
other ones,
Are not
yeah,
as good. I mean, it's basically, I mean, we know Rap can play. We know that. Hamlin, he can be good, but not great.
yeah.
Obviously, we know about Bishop and not great.
Well, Bishop's a rookie, so I can't give
Right.
him too much crap yet. So Hamlin, on the other hand, like it's a nice little story, but that honeymoon is over. That honeymoon's over.
Yeah.
Like we get it.
He's been in
It's
the league
you
for a
had
long
you
time now.
Yeah, it's been a little while. So what I'm thinking is this, and maybe you have an interesting thought than I do. How about talk to the Arizona Cardinals about Buda Baker, give up Hamlin along with a fourth rounder in 2027.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Or I have a better idea. How
Hmm.
about this? DeMar Hamlin, a 2025 second round pick that you got from Houston, and a fourth rounder in 2027 to the Cardinals for Buda Baker.
It's an interesting thought. Definitely an interesting thought.
Well, because again, you're not going to just win with one safety. You need two. Bishop's not ready for the spotlight. Hamlet sucks. You can't really rely on those two guys anymore. So Taylor Rapp signed an extension not that long ago. So really, he's out there by himself doing what he has to do. But he was injured recently, and he can't do all the work by himself. That's not fair. But I think Bean knows that he has to accommodate with a veteran. So that's why I'm bringing up the idea about Buda Baker, because let's face it, Arizona's not going to the playoffs. I know they're right now in the competition. I think they're what, 2-3 or 2-4, something ridiculous like that.
Let me take a look because I do have that.
Arizona,
Yeah, they're
Arizona.
actually 2-4 because they ended up losing to the Packers 34-13 this past week.
Okay, so it kind of validates my point. Buda Baker has requested a trade in the past, and he kind of backed out and said, "All right, I don't want to be traded anymore." It's the same situation that happened a few years ago with what the hell was his face? Patrick Peterson, when he was
Hmm.
with the Cardinals in his prime. He
Right.
requested a trade and he probably got blackmailed and said, I don't want to leave the Cardinals now. The same thing is happening here with Buda Baker. He requested a trade a while ago and it didn't really come to fruition. But again, if you can get Buda Baker for safe, for cheap, then do it.
Yeah.
I also wouldn't be against the idea of getting another wide receiver.
Right. There's a lot of options that we can do, and there's still plenty of times. But I mean, especially on the kicking side, though, we've got to address that early, and we got to do it now. Oh, and yep, and it's still 3-3. So I saw something. Anyways, Tuck's going to the box.
Damn
So
it.
yeah, looks like it might have been a cross check. So, but anyways, real quick, we'll just kind of go around the NFL. I mean, just to kind of recap some of the scores. So, 49ers and Seahawks. 49ers won 36-24. Jaguars continue their losing ways as they got their ass handed to them by the Bears 35-16. Ravens ended up going to 4-2. They beat the Commanders 30-23. So both of those teams are now at 4-2. Packers ended up whipping the crap out of the Cardinals 34-13. Patriots lose again 41-21 to the Texans. So the Texans are 5-1 to start the season, which has a great start for them. Bucks and Saints. Bucks win 51-27. Browns, of course, lost to Eagles 20-16, which was absolutely hilarious to watch them lose in the way they did. Titans ended up losing to the Colts 20-17. Broncos lose 23-16 to the Chargers. Raiders and Steelers, well, the Steelers end up winning 32-13, so the Steelers are at 4-2, which Rob will be happy about, although it does look like Russell Wilson's getting first team reps this week. Then, on top of it, Falcons end up winning 38-20 against the Panthers, so the Panthers are down to 1-5. At least Luffy's missing some of that action there. Lions, even with the Hutchinson injury, they ended up winning against the Cowboys 47-19, which is always fun watching them get their ass handed to them at home. Bengals and Giants, 17-7. Bengals ended up winning and they improved to 2-4. And then, of course, as we mentioned, 23-20, the Bills beat the Jets, where we improved to 4-2. And then, with that being said, I was gonna say, this Atlanta is getting another Super Bowl.
Yep, I think we mentioned it briefly 2 weeks ago that the Falcons were getting Super Bowl 62 in Atlanta.
Yep, officially announced now. So that's what they
There
got.
you go.
But other than that, let's jump into NHL hockey. And right now, of course, Pittsburgh and Buffalo 3-3 and just about 50 seconds left in the second. So nothing too crazy happening there. But I will say, right now, if the Sabres can actually come back and they can win this game, they'll have 2 wins on the season. They'll be at 2-2. So again, or I mean, actually no, it'd be 3-2. Or no, 2-3. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm mixing everything up. But anyways, I ended up going to the Kings game. We ended up losing. We had, of course, no goal 2024, bad penalties at the wrong times, 13 seconds for the opening 13 seconds of the third period where Anze Kopitar ended up getting a natural hat trick. But I will say, overall, the Sabres, I did notice they are playing better overall than what I saw all of last season with any games I saw in person. And I will say the new Jumbotron looks pretty sweet too. So that was pretty cool.
Well, Well, I was gonna say, how was the game?
It actually was not bad. It was just the third period that killed us when I went to see the game against the Kings. That was the only bad part about it. I mean, technically, it should have been 1-0 after one, but of course, because the puck was on the line when the clock hit zero, of course, they disallowed it. But I'm like, Jesus Christ. But at the same time, I mean, we got the shot off, so I mean, it was fine. It was very much a defensive game. That's the way I will describe it. Very defensive, and at least I did get to see Peyton Krebs drop the gloves and fight someone, so that was a big plus. And then on top of it, I do have my official game used warm up puck that I ended up picking up. So
There
I
you
did
go.
manage to get that. So yes, actual legit game used puck. And if you look
Yeah, so
really
now you have a
close, yeah, and if you look really close, it's got the blade and skate marks on it too.
that's
So
awesome.
that is pretty
Definitely
cool.
worth it.
Yes, and I got my case coming for that in the next couple days, so that'll be good. Really, one of the things we were kind of joking about in the third period, yeah, jumbotron was basically the start of the game. It actually looked really good,
Well,
and the
let's hope
noise
they
meter
can.
is a chicken wing now.
Well, let's hope that they actually win games and actually start giving a shit because it was a
Yes,
depression kind of a place in the last couple of seasons, and now they're starting to make it look sparkly. I don't know. In a way,
crowd
it
was
feels
louder
like the
than I've
Sabres
seen
are.
in a while, so that's good.
I feel like the Sabres are trying to appease the fans, and when they should have done so years ago.
Yeah.
But then again, and I said it in the beginning of the season. I said, unless things change, I have no expectations on the Sabres. And it's been like that for me for a little while
Hmm.
because I've said it before, I'm a realist. So I'd rather just be honest about it. But in general though, I'm glad though you had fun at the game. That's what I think what matters the most.
Yeah, definitely one of the better ones I've seen in actually quite some time because I know obviously you were here last December when we went to that absolute freaking pile of dog shit misery when we walked out before the end of the second period. So,
Don't remind me.
yeah, 9-4.
God, that was horrible that game.
Yeah, we walked out at what, 7-1 or 7-2 or something like that?
Something like it. I mean, it was so horrible. Like, I can't even.
Yeah.
I remember it was a Road to 32 episode that
Mhm.
I meshed together with the Bills and Sabres game.
Right.
But I remember, and I was just watching that episode today actually, and I said, looking back on it, I said, Jesus Christ, the Sabres were that horrible.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even matter if they wore the goat head jerseys. The fact the team didn't even bother to show up literally just spoke volume to me at the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, I mean, and the more I thought about that game after the fact, I remember I was telling you it was absolutely one of the worst I've ever been to in terms of the overall effort. And now looking back on it, since it's been about a year, I mean, that was easily top two, top three worst games I've ever been to.
Yep,
Easily top three.
and just to give you a quick baseball update, bases are loaded, bottom of the second with one out. Mets have three guys all loaded on base. So I'm waiting on who the next pitcher is going to be because Bueller has been horrible in the series for the Dodgers. So if the Mets hit another big hit, goes down deep, then we got a whole new
Hmm.
ball game. But still early. It's game three in the NLCS.
Yep.
Hope for the best. That's the one way I could put it.
Yep. Yeah, so, but overall, with what I'm seeing, at least in the games I have been watching, even though we got off to a little bit of a rough start with having those losses, the actual effort is not nearly as bad as what we saw the season before. So I will give it that. I think defensively we are playing better. I do think certain things with the penalty kill has improved. It's not like what we used to have where we were just absolutely flat out getting gassed on everything. Fourth line is definitely a better line than what we used to have. I think overall pairings are a better situation than what we used to have. And then I think right now is just getting I think it's a little bit of that getting used to the system, but at least now when they ended up beating Florida 5 or I think it was like 5-2 the other night and you're beating the defending Stanley Cup champs, that says something because literally they had Florida all over the place all night, and Florida was not comfortable at all during the game. Their
Why should
goaltender
they?
was not comfortable at all, and literally we had a field day with them. I mean, speed was absolutely one of the things we killed them with. But the thing is, we kept the puck out of our zone. We were constantly attacking on the Florida end, and that's what you got to do. You're getting the shots on net. You're going to rattle a goaltender. there you go. You get five in.
Exactly. But you know what? They were very disappointed in that game against Florida, and I thought they fired on all cylinders.
Hmm.
But I think the thing that really caught my attention about the Sabres as of late, and it was more of like a quick shrug and a hug, I call it. And it was the video that got leaked to the public. I'm sure you've seen it. Was the clip that had Dylan Cousins and Rasmus Dahlin fighting
Yeah,
at practice, and I said, okay, this might look bad on paper, but if you think about
it's
it,
a
the
good
Sabres
thing.
needed that. They
It's
needed that.
yeah, it's a good thing that that happened because we have not had that in years where teammates were fighting each other. And you know what? You need to see that from time to time because it shows, hey, we're willing to go hard in practice. We're willing to put that on the ice. And that is
Absolutely.
good to see. And then of course, the Krebs fight, I mean, right after that hit in the Kings game, first thing that happened, dropped the gloves. Even though we lost the fight, he still threw down. That's what you want to see, and we weren't seeing those types of things. And there were actually some good hits in that game that I ended up watching. So, and then a lot of that translated into then what we saw with the Florida Panthers. So at least now, with what I'm starting to see early on, even though it's still very early, the Sabres are being a little bit more physical than they had been. I do like that there is some of that fighting in between teammates because, I mean, it shows me that they're not going soft in practice, which is good. And then now we're starting to see some of that goaltending, or I mean, well, goaltending is fine, but the goal scoring is really the important thing. And Paterka's off to a good start this year, so that's a big plus. I
Tage
mean,
Thompson
Tage
too.
Thompson also good start this year, so that's a big plus. And then of course Levi and Luukkonen are playing fairly well, so that's also helping. And using that tandem, it's a good thing. So this way you're not burning out a goaltender like we've seen in the past. So there are good things compared to what we had last year at this time, and that's definitely a big thing to be optimistic about. Is it still too early to say anything? Yeah, it is. But at least the effort from what I'm seeing on the ice is a lot better than what we've seen in past years.
I just hope that it carries into the season because you can have, a good strive of games in the middle of the season
Hmm.
and then nothing comes out of it. But that's what I want from the team. But I think what really sparked me about that video that I was talking about with Cousins, I mean not with Krebs and
Yeah,
Darlene was Lindy Ruff's comment after the incident, and he said boys are gonna be boys. And
yeah,
he's like, you're damn right, because boys are gonna be boys and men in nature tend to fight each other for dominance.
yeah,
And that's exactly what happened.
right.
So I'm saying to myself was um if they're going to fight moving forward, the least you could do is put that kind of effort onto the ice because I
Hmm.
think that's something the Sabres have desperately needed for years,
Yeah.
and they haven't found that spark yet. But I'm hoping that they can actually use that as motivation moving forward and actually
Hmm.
win games.
Yeah.
But if there's a team out there that's kind of making an early surprise into the start of the season, I know it's like 4 or 5 games or whatever the number is, but if there's one team that's right now really jumped on me early, it was the Calgary Flames. The Calgary Flames are really coming in hard
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, they've actually gotten off to a good start. They ended up beating Chicago last night 3-1. So, I mean, good to see them playing well again. Dallas is off to a good start is what they've usually done. I mean, they beat the Sharks 3-2. How about Seattle beating Nashville 7-3 last night in Nashville?
It's a huge surprise for sure. Fuck, Lindor just got struck out.
Oof. Yeah. And,
Fuck.
and then of course the Philadelphia Flyers lose to the Edmonton Oilers last night 4-3 in overtime. So,
And I think they were up like 2-0 in the first period.
yeah. Yeah. Although Luffy will be happy, Toronto's up against the Kings 3-0 right now. So,
Yeah, for sure. And again, the Kings are a good team. The Leafs are a good team.
yeah.
It's all good. But I think the thing that really struck out to me about Calgary was their structure of their team. And they got some young guys in there. It's just that then they haven't really been able to adjust. I mean, yeah, teams like New Jersey, Dallas, Winnipeg, Vegas, Utah is in the top 10 for some
Yeah.
reason.
How about them? How about that start? 3-1 on the season so far. Good for them.
That's not bad. And you know what? I think now because they're playing it in a hockey market, like an actual hockey
That
market,
actually
I
gets
th-
more than 5,000 people per game.
and they're actually juvenated to actually win games.
Yes. And they don't have cheap ass owners anymore.
Yeah, they finally have somebody who's committed to winning.
Right. Yeah, and good for them. They deserve that team out there. I mean, and I watched that opening night game, and the way that they did it, they made it like a Vegas Golden Knights style atmosphere in there. So they've done more literally in 4 games than in 25 years out in Arizona. I mean, that's just insane. That well, of course, Batman wanted it to be his pet project in the desert. Well, guess what? Your pet project in the desert is the Vegas Golden Knights, and they're actually winning. So let this be the project of the Rocky Mountains, basically, in addition to Colorado. We know Colorado is a good team. They've been a good team for years. Let Utah take some of that finally. But no, good to see them playing well. And then on top of it, one of the other things that came out, there's actually 2 pieces of news. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit about Johnny Gaudreau and what they did for him in Columbus. But Riley Sheehan actually retired from the NHL after 12 seasons now. And how about Gustafson being the latest goalie to actually score a goal?
Yeah, Philip Gustafson scored a goalie goal yesterday for the Minnesota Wild in their regulation win. I think it was 4-1 over the St. Louis Blues. And Philip Gustafson launched it like Ron Hextall in the 80s. And the bench just went crazy. And I was watching that clip and I said, oh my God, that the bench went nuts because
Yeah.
goalie goals are so rare that they come around every 5 years.
Hmm.
It's to the point where you finally have someone that could put the puck in the net. And goalie goals are so rare that they're hard to come by because of the way the shape of the stick is designed.
Yeah.
They're designed to just chip the puck out.
Yeah,
They're
you
not
don't
there to
have the
like
curved
score.
blade.
They don't. I mean, and the thick, like the blade ending is so thick that you can't really do much with it within just one hand. But again, it's kind of cool to see goalies score goals like that, especially
Yeah.
for the newbies out there who are just getting into the sport and they see that they're like, "Wow, that's pretty cool."
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then a couple other things before we wrap up, because I know we've only got about 10 minutes left. But one of the other things that ended up coming out is, of course, Rob Ray, well deserved getting inducted into the Sabres Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. I was not expecting it. I did not hear anything all summer about it with Rob Ray.
Hmm.
I've met him a few times. I've interviewed him 4 years ago
Yeah,
on the Buffalo
love
Bobcast
to get him
when I
back
was
on here at
running it.
some point.
Yeah, the thing is, he's very, very tricky to get during the
Yeah,
season because he's always traveling. So that's going to be
right.
impossible.
Right. But no, cool guy. I mean, I've met him a couple times also. I mean, really nice guy to be around. Done a lot for this area. 6th all time in penalty minutes in the NHL. He's also first all time for the Buffalo Sabres. So he knows a thing or two about the penalty box. And he's also had some really, really good fights in his career. And of course, who can forget the 13 fights he had against Ty Domi back in the day?
I was just going to mention Ty Domi and Rob Ray, man, he Razor is a
Yeah.
legend in Buffalo. He's made a big stride on the team. Like I know he wasn't the flashiest player in the world, but when the team needed some grit, Rob Ray was the one
Yeah.
to step up and do all of the bashing and shit like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
for the
and Lindy Ruff
Sabres.
even mentions like, hey, in a jokingly way, it's like, oh yeah, Rob Ray was our like employer safety policy here for the team. He made it safe to come to work. So
I was gonna say, do you remember that commercial that came out like 30 years ago about Rob Ray with the ESPN commercial?
yeah, Sports Center, and basically it's like, oh yeah, he's Sports Center security.
Yeah, it's like, sir, I can't. I have to see your ID, and he's like, I can't. My hands are full. And he drops the gloves. And is like, he said he wants to see some ID, sir, and starts beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, that was great. That was around the time when Mastercard did the Dominic Hasek Slinky for a Spine commercial, if you remember that.
Which commercial?
Remember how they had Dominic Hasek with a slinky for a spine being priceless?
Yes, I
Yeah,
remember that.
that was a good one too. But
The Sabres have always had some interesting commercials.
yeah, but no, it was definitely cool to see that. But no, well deserved for Rob Ray. And just to think, man, season 21 for him in the commentary booth
Good for him. 21 years.
already. Yeah, 21 years.
Jesus Christmas.
I know.
Rob Ray's been doing that for that long.
Yeah. Yeah, he retired that long ago. I mean, and it's weird to think about that because he had his last couple seasons with the Ottawa Senators and then ended up coming and working with RJ. So,
Well, we knew about that, but we just I mean, I knew about the whole working with Rick Jeanneret thing. I mean, may he rest in peace. But
Yeah.
Rob Ray, though, I never thought of it like that. I thought he was only working for the team for like 15 years.
Yeah, no, 21 seasons in the booth.
Good for him.
Yeah, and he's actually become a really good commentator, honestly. So love hearing some of the things that he'll talk about, but no, well deserved. I mean, absolutely. I mean, he's a fan favorite here. Absolutely love the style of play that he had, and certainly great to see. And then even better, oh nice. And because I went to the Sabres game, I actually got 6 bottles of wine coming my way from Ticketmaster, so that's even better.
Interesting. Good for
Yeah,
you.
6 bottles of wine for $35. So I will take it. But even just a couple of the other things that we wanted to jump into before we end up wrapping up tonight. So in addition to that news, of course, the Columbus Blue Jackets did a nice ceremony for Johnny Gaudreau. The first 13 seconds of the game, they basically just let the clock go, so this way, just in honor of him. And of course, I know his family was out there as well, and plus they raised the 13 to the rafters at Nationwide Arena. So definitely good to see him get the respect he deserves off of that. And actually the crowd was chanting Johnny Hockey during right at the end of the moment of silence. And they also did a moment of silence for him in Buffalo when I went to the Kings game for the home opener. So that was cool to see how they ended up honoring him on that. So
Yeah, the Islanders did that too when they played Utah last week. I think it was last Thursday.
mhm,
They did a little moment of silence for him as well. I mean, I wasn't there, but I watched it on TV. But everybody across the league was doing it, and because it makes more sense for Matthew Gaudreau to be there because he was in the minors. He was a minor league player in the junior league for the Islanders, so it made sense for Matthew Gaudreau to be honored as well with Johnny. But again, these players have respect for each other, and the fact that a superstar like him, he lost his life so young, and then 2 months later after the tragedy, it's like it's completely changed the game forever for
yeah,
everybody. And in Columbus, I think is being exempt from his salary cap for the season, so they have every right to do what they want because of his death,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
And
they're letting them like stay. I think they're below the cap floor now or something like that. I mean, and they weren't really that much above it to begin with, but they're not getting penalized for being below at this point.
yeah, that wouldn't be fair. Especially, it's not like they have control of what happened.
Yeah,
But
so
it is.
yeah, so I mean, it's interesting to see what's going on with that, but you know, good to see him getting honored. I mean, definitely, it was a bad situation. I know we ended up talking about it earlier during the summer, but it is something where, unfortunately, things like that have happened before. And I mean, we've lost some good players in a variety of different sports.
But I will say that it was very respectful of what the Blue Jackets did for Johnny Hockey, and it will now be forever known that nobody will never wear the number 13 again in Columbus ever again.
hmm Yeah, and good for them, to honor them that way. So definitely good to see how they took care of that situation. And then, really, besides that, before I know we've been talking about Major League Baseball so far, a little bit. Of course, we've covered the Mets. I mean, Guardians ended up moving on. So Detroit unfortunately lost out. Of course, now the Yankees are still involved because they ended up so because the Padres ended up losing. So it's like, hey, here we go. We've got some interesting things coming up. But here's one little fun fact, and this is actually something you mentioned, and then we'll talk about Road to 32 to close out the show. But Phil Kessel in the World Poker Association. So apparently, at this point, what's happening is he was endorsed by the World Poker Tour as a brand ambassador.
Very interesting of Phil. Phil the Thrill getting an ambassador role for a poker tour. That is quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It is. So,
I'm surprised he didn't get a sponsorship from Nathan's Hot Dog Wear.
yeah, really, it's kind of interesting how that all played out. But
Yeah, really.
yeah, but I was gonna say, since we have a few minutes left, let's close out on Road to 32. So obviously next week we're not here because we're gonna be in Seattle. So, and who knows, we may go live on the page, just in a cameo or something like that. But it's gonna be an interesting time out there because we're out there for about 5 days, and actually one of them's gonna be in Vancouver, Canada. And luckily, because I have my new phone, it actually works in Canada because it runs off of Rogers up there. So I'm like, hey, thank you Spectrum for putting me up to a new phone.
Yeah, my phone's not gonna work the greatest when we're in Vancouver, but I will obviously get pictures and video and do all that when we get back to America. But I wanted to mention though that I am beyond excited about going to Seattle.
Same
It's
here.
gonna be a really good time, and we've been talking about it now for what,
So
5 months?
probably something like that. Yeah, almost 5 months. It was almost
Yeah, so
right
we've
after
been
the Cincinnati. Well, we started planning for it right after Cincinnati last year. So, but we announced it to everybody. I want to say about 5 months ago, maybe six.
Yeah, because I remember when we were coming home from Cincinnati and we looked at the 2024 schedule, at least the opponents, Seattle was on that list. And I said, dude, we got to do Seattle. And I was, wasn't sure about when the game was going to be played, but we were able to figure something out here and we were able to accommodate our schedule and work things out like we have been for the last few months. So it's kind of become a trend with Road to 32 lately. First, it was Kansas City, where we planned out everything for within 5 months, and we were on the go. Cincinnati last year, we took about 6 months to do because I think the trip took place in early November last year, right after Halloween. And then this year, we're going to Seattle, to the Pacific Northwest. So that's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. We have big plans for
Hmm.
all of you in Seattle, including a stadium tour at Lumen Field. And we're going to get a chance to go to the Space Needle, which is going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait to do that.
Yes, and plus we're gonna get our first ever visit of Climate Pledge Arena because we're going to be going to a Kraken game. And then, of course, we're going to be at Rogers Arena in Vancouver because we are seeing a Canucks game, which my Canucks stuff actually showed up today.
Yeah, and then on Sunday, Sunday Fun Day, we're doing our official Run to 32 episode for the whole purpose of the trip is to see the Buffalo Bills play the Seattle
Hmm.
Seahawks. So that's going
Yes.
to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait to do that. And at that point in time, it would have been 4 weeks ago to the date since I was in Baltimore, Maryland for the Ravens game on Sunday Night Football, which clearly did not work out score wise, but had a great time in Baltimore. And now here we are again going to Seattle, Washington.
Right.
First time out ever in the Pacific Northwest or just on the West Coast areas. I've never been to LA, so I've never been there. We're nowhere near LA, but we are in Washington State, and that is going to be a hell of a trip, and I cannot
Hmm.
wait to do that.
Yeah, for me, I've been in the Northwest before, but I've never been to Pacific Northwest, so it'll be my first time out there. Last time I was out in the Northwest, I want to say it was the late 90s, early 2000s. That's actually my dad lived in Idaho for a while with my stepmom, so I actually have been able to visit Boise, Idaho at least three different times that I remember of, and got to do that as a teenager, which was great. And basically with that, just never had a chance to go back, that's but it'll be a fun time. And plus, with where we're gonna, I mean, with where we're staying, we're close to everything, which is nice. So it's gonna make it getting easy to the arena, make it easy going to the Space Needle, easy going to Lumen Field, which that's gonna be fun to see that place. It actually be in the second loudest stadium in the league, other than Arrowhead, which we've already been to 2 years ago. So looking forward to that. Be interesting to see how the Vancouver Canucks play when we go up to Vancouver because that's been a building I've wanted to go to for a long time and watch a game. So get to kind of cross that off my bucket list also. But Seattle, I mean, from everything I've seen, they make it a really fun experience to be in that arena for hockey. So it'll be fun to basically do that as our guys' night out, where we're gonna have some beer and enjoy some hockey. And I've got, of course, I'm bringing my Kraken hoodie with me too.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. Thanks for reminding me, by the way. I have to pull out the Kraken and the Canucks jersey for my suitcase for next week when we start packing.
Mm.
But one thing I must mention real quick is when we're in Seattle, um, I just realized we're gonna be seeing Amari Cooper on the road for the very first time.
Yes,
I
that'll
just
be sweet.
realized that. So
And
Amari Cooper will be
yeah,
wearing his Bills jersey in Seattle.
yeah, number 18. And then on top of it, we will actually be able to walk on the field at Lumen Field as part of the tour.
I can't wait to do that, honestly.
I
Like,
know.
just
Just like
imagine being on the
Arrowhead.
field. Oh yeah, imagine that. Like, and I think there's a nickname for Lumen Field. I think they call it, if I remember correctly, I think it's called the Hawk's Nest, if I remember, or that's like a certain column in one of the seating sections at Lumen Field. So, and the nice thing about the stadium too is that if you look at the structure of the stadium, and it's going to feel very differently when we go
Hmm.
on into the stadium on the field next week, is it's going to feel like it's very shallow because of the roof of how it's
Yeah.
designed, because it was like built of like Nassau. So like the whole intention was to make it like an indoor stadium, like the Kingdome from like nearly 4 decades ago. And if for an outdoor building too, by the way, that's pretty impressive. Is
Yeah.
that there's like a dome on the outside of the stadium, and then all the sound that comes in from the stadium bounces down into the stadium. But how the hell were they able to do that with an outdoor stadium? I have no idea.
Right. It's just crazy with what they did. I mean, and it's similar to what our new stadium in Buffalo is going to be because in Buffalo they say about 65 to 75% of the seats are going to be covered and it's going to echo the noise all over the place. Whereas I know with Lumen Field, it's kind of a similar setup where you have two main seating areas and they have a roof over the most of it, and then the end zones are completely open. But it's going to be a fun spot to see. And then, of course, with having the view of the skyline from the one end, it's going to be pretty cool too. So it'll be interesting to see how everything works out. It'll be interesting to walk through some of the places that you will never get to see as a regular fan going in there. So us doing the tour and being able to go through similar scenario like we did at Arrowhead where we got to see the locker rooms and well actually we didn't get to see locker rooms because of the game the following
It
day
was also the day
but
before the game.
right, but we did get to see the press conference room. We got to see Lamar Hunt's apartment, or actually look at it. We got to see a lot of the different art, the club levels, all of that stuff, suites. I mean, we got to see some really cool stuff as part of it. And then, of course,
Oh yeah.
we'll see some similar stuff in Seattle, so it'll be a fun time. And then
I wouldn't be
of course,
sorry, go
we'll
ahead.
hit up the food scene when we're there too. So there's some cool things we found about that. Sushi in Vancouver, and Seattle is the originator of teriyaki chicken. So if you like teriyaki at your local Chinese or Japanese place, thanks Seattle for coming up with it back in 1976, and we're gonna check out one of the original teriyaki joints.
Yeah, and the other big thing too is they're also famous for salmon, which is huge in Seattle.
Hmm.
But they're also famous for their variant of hot dogs as well. And one of them is the Seattle dog. And I mentioned it last week in a private conversation with Tom. And supposedly it's a hot dog with cream cheese and pepper with hot sauce and a bunch of onions and things like that. I don't know. I'm really interested in trying it. Or I can at least make it at home. I really don't know, but I have to
Yeah,
look up the recipe for it. But it looked very interesting, and some people will be like, "Ew, cream cheese, that's disgusting." So I don't know. It's gonna feel very different when we go up there. But regardless of the situation, we're gonna be in for a grand old time in Seattle in the Pacific Northwest because we're getting an opportunity to go to different variety of places. You know, Climate Pedro Arena. We're gonna do a Road to 32 episode on its own there, like we did for the Florida Panthers, and then
shit, Pittsburgh just scored.
of course they fucking did. What
Yeah,
else is
four
new?
three, and now they're let's see, shots on goal 31-21. So it's like, oh, even better. They're really starting to turn it on.
Malkin just scored, so they're doing the ceremony.
Fuck.
Yep, 499 for Evgeny Malkin. All he needs is one more for 500. I mean,
Right.
congratulations to him though.
Yeah, good player for a lot of years. I'll tell you that.
Oh wait, that is his 500th goal. Wow,
Wow.
good for Gino, man. He's been in the league for 20 years.
Hey, you can say you've witnessed it here on this show. We got to see Gino's 500th goal.
Yeah, good for Gino, man. He's been in the league for a long time.
Yep.
He's gonna definitely be a future Hall of Famer for sure.
Yes, he will.
Him and Sidney Crosby.
Hmm.
So it's safe to say both Crosby and Malkin were able to achieve their goals.
Yep. Yeah, Crosby hitting 16. Was it 1,600 points, and then Malkin with 500 goals.
Yeah, good for him. You know,
Yep.
that's if you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan and you're actually there in person, that's pretty fucking
Yeah.
cool
Nice
to
goal
see
though.
both of those people, accomplish what they had to do.
Hmm.
And good on them on that end. But aside from that though, for Road to 32 is we're doing the Seattle Kraken game. On the first day we get off the plane, not directly, but we're gonna get into the hotel, we're gonna clean up, shower, whatever, and then Tom and I are going to the game. And then the crazy thing about Seattle is we're going to get a chance to go to both Seattle and Vancouver, both US and Canada. So that's going to be very interesting how that all plays out. So I'm very, very excited about this trip for sure. And we're also going to get an opportunity to go to the Starbucks roastery in Seattle as well, because I'm pretty sure Seattle is famous for Starbucks, or
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
least that's
that's
the
where they
original.
started. Yeah. Original
Yeah. So
Starbucks, Pike Place Market. And then the
Yeah,
original, and
that
then of course the original location was torn down is now the roastery that we're going to. So it's not the original per se, but it is the first roastery in the U.S. that they actually opened up, and we can do tours and different things like that. So it'll be cool to check it out, and it'll be in walking distance for us.
well, what are you looking forward to the most about the trip?
I would say the fact that we've never been there obviously is one thing. I mean, I've driven through Cincinnati before, but it was cool to actually spend time there. I would say KC, it was a fun time. It was totally something different. Seattle, I think, is going to be very different in terms of the fact that it's more big city versus what we had previously. And then also on top of it, well, we might have to worry about the occasional earthquake or two, um, but I think being able to put Vancouver in the list and being able to hit one of the big Canadian cities I've really wanted to visit for a long time, that's part of what I'm looking forward to also. So being able to do both cities in the same trip, I think will be really cool. And then on top of it, I mean, watching the Kraken, that'll be a lot of fun. Seeing the newest team in the NHL. Being on the field again will be a great thing, especially we're going to do that at Lumen Field, so that'll be fun. So there's just a lot of different things I'm looking forward to with this trip.
Without a doubt. I'm just looking forward to just having fun with you and Brittany there. And, Kansas City was a lot of fun because, again, that was the one that started it all. We
Hmm.
got to go on the field. We got to go to Kansas City, Kansas. We went to St.
Yeah.
Louis for the Budweiser factory. We went to the St. Louis Zoo. That was fun. We also went to the Gateway Arch, which I honestly, looking back on that episode, the only thing I regret about that episode was I did not get any footage of the outside of the arch. I got the inside,
Hmm.
which I honestly, because I look back on that episode lately, and I love that episode because that's the first one we've ever done.
Yeah.
I look back on it and I said, "Shit, I forgot to put the Gateway to Arch in there." So I look back at it now and I'm like, well, I had pictures, yeah, but that's personally for me. But for anybody else who wanted to see it,
Mm.
who never seen it up close, that was my gate. That was my
Yeah.
my cue to kind of give everybody that chance. But I never shot it, and I fucking regret that, dude. And I slap myself in the face every day for that because it's just like in a way, I wanted it to happen, and I forgot about it. I was so excited. So same thing, but
Yeah.
no, but I think with Cincinnati though, Cincinnati was very interesting because I felt like there was a lot more to do in
Hmm.
Cincinnati than there was in Kansas City. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't like one city over the other, but I just generally feel that Cincinnati, I felt like there was more variety to do, and plus Rob Hazy was with us that time.
Right. And plus we had both cities actually on opposite sides of the river. We had Cincinnati on the Ohio side of the river. We were in Covington on the Kentucky side where we stayed. So we had things to do on both sides of the river, and that part was actually pretty cool because we got to get a little mix of both, which is something that you don't always see on one of those types of trips. And then just being able, and we threw Cleveland in that one because we went to the Rock Hall and we went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which is always fun to go visit that. And I've been there twice now, as part of that. I know I think it was your first time there, and you and Britt, and I think it was Rob's first time there also. And I know for the Rock Hall, it was your guys' first time there, and then it was my second because I was there back in 2010. And yes, hopefully, as far as I know, I think our Horns and Hooves sticker is still somewhere in there. But no, it was just a good time. It really was. And then even with that, I still have my Buffalo Trace stuff and everything else, and I still have that bottle of Buffalo Trace I've never opened. So that's like one of those collector things that shall stay sealed.
Well, I think there's a thing where alcohol doesn't really expire, and supposedly the older it is, the better it tastes.
Right. And I figured just let it age, let it do even more.
It's kind of amazing how regular, typical things like food, for example, you don't do that with food because you only have a window of time.
Right.
Like milk, like just to compare, like alcohol and milk, for
Yeah,
example,
milk you have to
wine
use in a
and
couple days.
yeah, like milk, it's almost like you're forced to use it within a week, especially if you
Right.
buy it like like if you buy like a gallon of milk for like 2.99, you have to use that in a window of like a limit of time. With
Yeah.
a bottle, like if you buy like a $30 bottle of wine, you could put it on your collection
Yeah,
of
you
your
could
stock.
store it and never use it, and it'll get better over time.
Yeah, dude, I've seen videos in the past where you could buy or you could literally open like a big jar of wine from like ancient Egypt or
Mm-hmm.
something like colonial like that, and people take a knife and they open the perimeter of the
Yeah.
jar and they taste the wine and they say that that's honestly delicious with
Yeah.
1,000-year-old wine. Now, granted, that's over 1,000 years old, but at least with the wine, it at least tastes better that way. I mean, I'm not a wine
Yeah.
person, but I know that that's just common sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest wine drinker, but I will have some sometimes. And literally the more that you let a wine age, the better it is. I mean, the flavor is going to be better, and it's just one of those things you can throw it on a wine rack and not even worry about it. And literally you're going to have some really good things to drink, which is great. And by the way, thanks Ticketmaster, because I got 6 bottles of wine coming my way, I think tomorrow. So
There you
I
go.
got to go pick that up, which is not bad. 6 bottles for $35. I'll take it.
And that's not just with wine. That's like with
That's with
alcohol with
any
any.
alcohol. I mean, you let beer sit, and usually it'll get better over time, or like any whiskey, it'll definitely get better. Any rum usually gets better. So it's one of those things, especially with wine. The more you age it, the better it is. So I'm like, all right, that's a good thing. But yeah, with the Buffalo Trace, that's like one of those bottles I don't plan on opening anytime soon. That's more of a collector's item for me at this point.
Same, but you know what? Brett and I had the Buffalo Trace like whiskey. It was really, really rich. I'll say that,
Yeah.
and it was a lot better than I remember it when we went to Cincinnati. And I just said to myself, when we went to the distillery, I said this place is pretty damn cool. And we went to one of the oldest running like
Yeah, like
distilleries in the
1800s.
U.S.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And the thing that fascinated me about that trip in Cincinnati was the culture of how people acted. And people were just so astounded that, we were there, being natives that are not from Cincinnati,
Hmm.
but rather we just were there for the not just
Yeah.
for the Bengals game, but we were there just to visit it. And we obviously went to the Cincinnati Zoo. That was fun. And then we went to Cleveland for the Rock Hall of Fame and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And then, of course, the Bengals game, which was an abysmal performance at the time, but it was a lot closer than it should have been on paper. But I had a great time in Cincinnati. And now we're fast forwarding it to this year in 2024.
Yeah.
Next week, we go to the Pacific Northwest. So
Yeah.
outside of that, though, I am beyond excited about that trip. I am so excited to go to the Pacific Northwest and see Amari Cooper in his first road game. I'm
Hmm.
excited to see Josh Allen play in that really hostile environment because it's very rare to be playing in that kind of area to
Oh
begin
yeah.
with. But if it rains, mwah, that's the chef's kiss right there
Yeah.
because Seattle's huge for rain. So that's
Hmm.
that's a big thing.
Yeah, definitely. And plus I think our seats are under the overhang if it does rain, so I ain't even worried about it. But even then, no, it'll be fun. As a team, we don't play very often. I think we only play them like what, once every 4 years or something like that. So the fact that we're playing
Yeah, usually it
Seattle,
rotates.
yeah. So the fact that
Yeah,
we're
usually.
playing Seattle there, that is pretty cool.
Well, because if we fast forward to 2028, it would be completely reversed. Like the Bill schedule this year, they have the Rams and they have the Seahawks on the road. And then at home, they have the Cardinals in week 1. And then
Hmm.
I think in week 13, they play the 49ers. So that right there
Yeah,
is solidified.
same
And then
thing.
fast forward to 4 years later in 2028, it's completely reversed.
Yeah, get them on the road. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. But no, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a fun time, and certainly it'll be interesting to be in a totally different place. But some of the things I'm familiar with out in the Northwest, so it'll be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, now I just have to make sure I remember my earbuds for the 5 hour flight. But but I will say all together though, it'll be a good time, and we'll enjoy it all.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm looking forward to it. Make sure you read a book, bring a DVD player, whatever you have, bring
Yep.
it.
Well, I know one thing.
Bring
I'm
it.
bringing the laptop. I know on my flight, I will have the USB charger on there, so that part's good. And apparently, if I remember correctly, Delta has, I think, DirecTV on there.
Yep. JJ Paterka just scored again.
Good. Now, if they didn't wave off that other one, he would have had a hat trick.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, second goal of
But
the night.
hell yeah.
Man,
Now let's actually go out and beat the Penguins,
yeah,
please.
yeah.
That'd be good.
I'll tell you one thing.
But
I love who Paterka's turning into as a player.
absolutely, me too.
That is a
I love
nice
it.
goal.
Absolutely. Top shelf where Mama hides the cookies.
Yep. So
Top shelf.
beautiful, beautiful. No question on that one.
Chef's kiss right there for sure.
Yes. Good goal. Good goal.
But in general, though, I am very, very excited. I know we were talking about 10 minutes ago, saying we were going to wrap it up, but I think we both got sidetracked talking
Yeah.
about this trip. So I just find it funny that we're both at the point of going on this trip, and it's our last show before the next 2 weeks because we're going
Yeah,
to be
I'm
coming home
moving
on
as soon as I come home, so
yeah, so
yeah.
we don't even know if
Which
November 6th will still be up in the air or not, but we'll find out. We'll play it out. We will be back from Seattle, but I think the week we actually allegedly come back from the trip would be the same weekend I go to Indianapolis.
right. Yeah, you have that coming up too, so it's
Very
good.
quick trip up
Yeah.
north to Indy.
Yeah, be very interesting. Get to see Lucas Oil Stadium over there, so it'll be yeah, you'll get the dome game.
Yeah, that's actually the very first dome like stadium that anybody was able to do, between
Right.
us two or whatever, Like I wanted to do Houston earlier this year, but it was way too close to the schedule and the Ravens and the Texans were playing each other within a week apart. If Houston was playing in like week 8 rather than week 5, I probably
Hmm.
would have went to the game instead of Indianapolis.
Yeah, and oh, we just Sabres just scored 5-4.
Yay. Hell yeah, let's go. Let's fucking go,
Nice. Oh,
baby.
McLeod.
Oh
Okay.
wow, Ryan McLeod scoring goals. Look at that. First one is a Saber.
Yeah, nice.
Holy hell. What's happening?
I was gonna say, when's the last time I ever saw Ryan McLeod score a goal?
Never.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Jesus.
yet,
Oh, nice wrist shot in the screen.
and then Kevin Adams' dumbass trades Matt Savoy for him.
Jesus.
Yeah. But
Well,
in general though, like I'm really, really excited about Seattle. I can't wait to do the Kraken game. That's gonna be a hell of an experience.
yeah, that will be. And I heard their pregame intro is absolutely insane with like the 3D and everything they do.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to take a look at ourselves. But I
Yeah.
do have to get some stuff while we're in Seattle. We're at the Kraken game, like the souvenir cup. I have to get. I have to get the pin for my collection and a bunch of other things.
Yep. Yep, for sure. And then it'll be fun because basically the week, well, actually next week right before we fly out, I get the keys in my new place. So that'll be all good to go and I can actually technically I can start moving some stuff in the right after I come back home. So be fun. Kind of weird. This is the last ever BAD in my current home office studio.
Yeah, and it's gonna get the proper send off.
Yes, it will. It will. But even
Isn't
better,
it crazy? Isn't it crazy that you've been airing BAD for 5 years in that apartment?
yeah, crazy that it's been in this house, and then now it's like next BAD is from my new place. So be kind of interesting, but it'll actually be good though. I mean, I'm still gonna have the better computer setup. Actually, you're gonna have higher speed internet now, even more than what we've upgraded to recently here. So that'll be good. And then on top of that, it'll just be nice, more space. But even better if I have people over, much nicer setup now that I'll have, especially with the surround sound. So, and
Absolutely.
Bobby's heard about what my living room's gonna be set up as, and it's gonna be absolutely insane with what I got in there, 4K everything.
Oh yeah, definitely, dude. I'm excited for you. I mean, it's gonna be quite a journey for you,
Yeah, 4K 4K TV, Onkyo surround sound. Oh man, football and hockey will never be better.
without a doubt. So you got a lot going on. So Road to 32 in Seattle next week, and then you're moving into your new apartment, and then
Yeah.
me and Britt are wrapping up our trips for Road to 32 in 2024
Hmm.
in Indianapolis.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of stuff going on. But as far as I know right now, I mean, November 6th, I mean, we're still planning to do a show like we normally do. So as far as I know, that's still on. I mean, obviously, if anything changes, I mean, we'll let you guys know. But I think the week that we come back from Seattle, we'll have the Road to 32 episode up, which we'll post on our page. So, of course, feel free to check that out. You'll get to see what we did out on the trip. And then, really, besides that, I can't really think of too much else to talk about right now. I think we've kind of covered it all in a nice little extended episode, unless you want to go another 7 minutes and make it a full hour and a half.
No, I think we're good from here. We did a lot of covering than we normally would have attempted to, but I had a really good conversation to wrap up this episode. But more importantly, like I said, guys, we'll let you know if anything changes. But as of now, we will not be doing the next 2 weeks of Buffalo After Dark, and it will most likely take place after right when I come home from Indianapolis.
Yep. So with that, of course, if there's any news that does come up, we'll of course share it. In the meantime, if you want your Bills fix, check out Nickel City Crew. We've been simulcasting them recently on our page. Certainly, Rob and his crew will do the honors, and they'll take over the next couple weeks. And of course, certainly feel free to subscribe to their show and on their platforms as well. We're happy to feature them now on here, so it's great. We have basically it's a second show, actually third show if we count Road to 32. So good to have them on board as well. But check them out next week for any of the Bills coverage. We'll post the links there. But in the meantime, as usual, of course, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. And of course, if you want good barbecue, I barbecue for you. Pre-order, they're actually open on Tuesdays now, so Tuesday through Saturday. Pre-orders are suggested because they do run out. And actually, I'm going to probably grab some ribs and brisket from them before I head out to Seattle. But in the meantime, with everything being said, we'll see you in Seattle. So until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great rest of your night.
Go Bills.